Okay, moving on to application problems 10, 11, and 12. This first one here talks about an arrow that is shot vertically upward. Seems like a bad idea to shoot an arrow straight up, but and then they give you this equation that represents the height of the arrow after t seconds. So height at t seconds. And this v sub 0 stands for the velocity or the speed of the arrow. And then the h sub 0 is the starting height. And they say that this arrow is shot off of a platform that is 41 feet above the ground. So I substitute in all my values here. They tell us that the arrow is shot with an initial velocity of 155 feet per second. So there's the velocity from the platform at 41 feet. Now they ask, when does the arrow hit the ground? So they want to know when this height here is 0. That would represent hitting the ground. Okay. So once I have this equation here, which is pretty easy to substitute my values in, what I can do is I can just put into to Desmos, I can put y1 equals negative 16x squared plus 155x plus 41. Okay, and then what I'm going to look for is I'm going to look for when does this function hit the 0 line. Okay, so I could graph y1 and y2, but this is a nice way to do it also. So I get this parabola here, and I pointed out a few things on the parabola. One is that this represents at the starting time 0, it's 41 feet off the ground. Here it reaches its, at 4.844 seconds, it reaches its max height of 416.391 feet, okay, approximately. And then over here, this is the one I was most concerned with, is when does it hit the 0 line, okay? And it happens at roughly 9.9 seconds. Okay? So one thing that's a little confusing for students is that this doesn't represent the flight pattern of the arrow. Okay, that's not the arrow's flight pattern. Remember, the arrow is being shot straight up, so it's coming straight down. Okay, this is a relationship between the time and the height of the arrow. Okay, so next it talks about a rock climbing group that's going to go on a trip that's going to cost $3,600. Now we know the trip's going to cost $3,600. And if you think about this, if you had a trip that was going to cost $3,600 and 10 of your friends were going on the trip, you would simply divide by 10 and you would come up with it. Hey, everybody has to pay $360. And if 2 people backed out, the trip would be more expensive per individual. So that's kind of the idea of this problem. It says, hey, we had some original people going and 5 people backed out. Okay, so when 5 people back out, this price is going to be more dollars, and this is going to be less dollars, and more minus less equals the difference in price. Okay, so I put this in for y1 and this in for y2 into Desmos, and I get this graph here. I get the horizontal line for the y equals 36, and then this function coming down here for the left side of y1, and they intersect at 2536. So remember, this is the x value, okay? And the problem says how many people went on the trip total. Well, the number of people that went on the trip was 25 minus 5, which is equal to 20 people who actually went on the trip. If they would ask how many people went originally on the trip or were going originally, we would say 25. Okay, and then this last one here involves the Pythagorean theorem because it talks about a tree that's casting a shadow, and we get this right angle here from the tree to the shadow. And we fill in our values here. It says the tree is X, the shadow is 14 less than the height of the tree, And from the tip of the tree to the tip of the shadow is x plus 2. So what I did is I put this in the quadratic formula here, and I want to point out that a lot of students make a mistake at this point of the quadratic formula. They forget to square these properly. So you have to remember to multiply x minus 14 times itself, and the same thing with this. Okay. Now, once we multiply that out and FOIL these, what we end up with is a statement like this, and we can manipulate it into standard form. And once we're in standard form, we could put this in the quadratic formula, or we can factor it. Now, since it's factorable, you see that we get x equals 8 and x equals 24. Well, this one, if you check it out, can't work. Because if we put 8 in here, we get a shadow length that's in a negative number. So we have to rule out this here, okay? And then we want to make sure and answer the question carefully. If it asks the height of the tree or the length of the shadow, we'd have to think about how we're going to use this 24. But the height of the tree is 24, and the length of the shadow would be 10. And then from the here to here would be, from the tip to the tip would be 24 plus 2 would be 26. Okay, so just make sure you answer what the question is asking.